Alex Hormozi just revealed the business model that skyrocketed his success as a total beginner, and it's not Skool. I tapped into the same strategy early on and made $385,000 just last month. Imagine catching the wave of SMA or dropshipping back in 2012. Now, in 2024, you have a similar chance to change your life. And in this video, I'm going to break down why following Hormozi's current advice isn't the best move for beginners, and why Skool is in the ideal starting point, and what you should be doing instead to potentially get rich. For those unfamiliar, this is Alex Hormozi.
He's still worth the same. He's like, all you can do is think there's just levels to it. And I think the moment just happens to be that they're the same size as you. No one even can see them behind you.
Think of Hormozi as the guy who opened the floodgates, making businesses far more understandable even for the average person. Thanks to his straightforward approach, he's built a massive following and now gets thousands of investment requests each month at acquisition.com, his company which invests in other companies to make money. Despite the demand, Alex is selective, only partnering with a few companies each year. One company, however, managed to catch his eye, a platform named Skool, his biggest investment to date. Skool is essentially like Discord, but for education. It allows creators to build a community, host weekly calls, offer courses, and charge monthly subscriptions for access. Currently, Hormozi is heavily promoting Skool, pushing his audience to use the platform to build their communities. While many have profited from using Skool, it's important to recognize why Hormozi is so invested in pushing this platform. The more people that sign up to Skool, the more money he makes. But making money for beginners in Skool needs not just a well-sized audience, but also a good understanding of making content, which might not be realistic for everyone starting out. This brings us to what I believe is much more accessible and potentially lucrative model for beginners, an influencer marketing agency, or an IMA. But I'm not going to pretend I'm nearly as impressive as Hormozi and what he's achieved, so let's hear what he thinks about this model.
And so I've paid real money to get influencers to promote my businesses. I spent over $20 million on influencers to promote Prestige Labs. And in Allen, I spent over $22.8 million on influencers to promote the software. And I've had over 23,000 affiliates who promoted my last book, $100 Million Leads. That's a screenshot from our CRM, which helped me sell over 1 million copies of my last 2 books, $100 Million Offers and $100 Million Leads. And so I've made millions using influencers to promote my businesses.
Hormozi has actually used influencers multiple times to grow and scale his companies, and got rich doing so. He didn't do it with the Skool community, so whilst he's telling you to start one, does it not make sense to do what he did? And that brings us to a highly effective alternative that mirrors what Hormozi did in his early days, the influencer marketing agency. Real simply, an IMA is a business where you act as the middleman or woman between brands and influencers. By building partnerships that are mutually beneficial, you leverage the existing audiences of influencers, promote products and services of brands, much like Hormozi leveraged influencers to scale his own companies. These brands will then allocate a budget to these campaigns, and you can easily take anywhere from 20 to 50% of a cut. This is the same business that I still run to this day that makes me now $385,000 a month as of last month. I'm not going to push a business or tell beginners to start a business unless it's my main source of income. Before I get to the pros and cons of running an IMA and how it compares to other businesses like Growth Operating or other agency models, here's an example of what an IMA looks like or how a campaign works. Funnily enough, I'm going to use Hormozi and Skool for this demonstration because whether he says it or not, Hormozi is still leveraging influencers to this day to make money. There's 2 things Hormozi is currently doing to promote Skool. The first is using his own personal brand and following to push his audience to use the platform. He's doing this through content on YouTube and even a few ads on Instagram you might have come across. The second way is actually using other influencers and creators to promote it through his own campaign called the Skool Games, which is basically a challenge where the top 10 people who add the most revenue to their community in a month got to meet Hormozi in person. But why is he doing this? Because a competition like this requires more revenue, so influencers bring more of their audience to Skool in order to win. That means more users for Hormozi, so he's actually leveraging influencer marketing to grow another one of his companies. What are the pros and cons for beginner starting an IMA though? I want to give you a balanced view in this business model so you can make your own decision. Before I do that though, it's important you understand what an IMA does exactly. To put it simply, on one end of the relationship we have brands like Microsoft, Netflix, Manscaped. These brands want to make more money and increase the number of people who know about them, but in a more authentic way. Usually they want you to run campaigns, manage the creators working for them, and get them a return on their investment. But most of these brands have no clue what they're doing when it comes to marketing through influencers. So that's the skill they value most. On the other side of this business, we have influencers. Whilst an IMA handles the influencer, giving them a campaign, which is basically videos and stories to post and a brief to follow, making sure they actually do what is needed to get the brand results. We also have influencers we manage, who we source deals for, reach out to sponsors, and manage their brand overall. So there's a lot of opportunities here to make money and diversify the way you earn, which is the first benefit to running an IMA. You don't just rely on putting together a campaign and acting as a middleman, you can provide value in other ways. So you're not at risk of being cut out where the brand reaches out to the creator or vice versa. You can offer things like long-term influencer contracts and other services for influencers who you work with, so they're happy and don't leave you. The more you work with influencers, the more you understand their content, and even more importantly, their audience. So you're aware of what campaigns and what brands would resonate with your influencer audience and who is best to pair them with. Ultimately, that means that you're a middleman that can't be replaced because your understanding and time invested into each influencer is too deep for the brand to do it themselves. It would essentially take creating another department or arm of their business, which these brands just don't want to do. So there's a decent barrier to entry with this business model so that your average teenager can't just watch a few videos and saturate the market like an SMA or growth operating. There's a few skills which, if not refined, will separate those who don't make it work from those who succeed and print with this business. Why am I so confident it won't get saturated though? Well, the creator economy is growing and advertising in its traditional form has become super saturated and consumers have become more aware and tone deaf to it. Which leads me on to the third benefit of running an IMA. There's growing demand.
Market is always going to be the strongest variable in how much money you make, right? If you're selling toilet paper during COVID, you're going to sell out. Right? Because it didn't matter how good your toilet paper was, there was a starving crowd.
As of 2024, the global creator economy is currently worth 156 billion. It's expected to triple by 2030. There's not nearly enough IMAs out there to satisfy the demand. I mean, this video on my channel is a perfect example. I have just under 2,000 subscribers, and when you search for influencer marketing on YouTube, I'm the only one that comes up. It's an overlooked business model, but brands want this service because they know that you and I are more likely to watch the Sidemen or a TikToker talk about a product that they use over some high production ad. For a business with this much demand and potential though, the overhead and startup costs are ridiculously low. Like most of these new online business models, an IMA doesn't actually cost that much to run. You just need a laptop, an internet connection, and a business email domain, so brands will take you seriously. Other than that, it's purely down to skill and doing the right things, like building a strong influencer network and outreaching to brands with the right scripts. In fact, if you're running an IMA right now, I guarantee you with just a few changes, you could scale it to multi-six figures in just a few months. So if you have one right now and are ready to take it seriously, message me on Telegram because I've literally got the blueprint to scaling an IMA to multiple seven figures. The thing I like the most about this business model though is the freedom you get with it. You're not a slave to your business like most agency models or even these new ones like growth operating. Most of the work can be delegated and you can oversee it whilst traveling the world just like I did. You can lock in for 3 or 4 months and enjoy the rest of the year to yourself, traveling or just doing the things you enjoy. But like I said, I'm not trying to sell you a dream here. I want to give a realistic view of the influencer marketing agency model, and since I run a $4 million IMA, I'd say I'm quite qualified to. Now, I won't pretend that this is a business model that doesn't have challenges. The first con to running an IMA is the dependence that you have on the influencers. Even if you keep them happy and provide value, there's a reliance on how well the influencer does on social media and also their reputation. For example, if you did a campaign with Logan Paul back in 2017, what went down in Japan might not have been the best look for your agency.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment, and I don't expect to be forgiven. I'm simply here to apologize.
Sometimes there's also just a problem of influencers failing to deliver. Some of them will just not perform as well as they should have, which can strain the relationship that you have with brands. Which leads me on to my other issue with an IMA, and that's managing relationships. When you're a middleman, your job is twice as hard, because not only do you have to satisfy the influencer, but also the brand. Managing their expectations can be difficult, and especially the brand, if what they think is just unrealistic. And sometimes, it can be hard to translate what a brand needs to the influencers that you work with on a campaign. I cover all of this in my IM Academy though, so if you join that, I show you to manage these issues. But the burning question in your mind, what you've been wondering this whole entire video, is this better than using Skool or growth operating? Will this business be easier to set up and scale as a total beginner compared to the other businesses in 2024? And my answer hangs on a few questions I want you to answer honestly. Do you have a following of people who trust you and have money on hand to buy products or services from you? Essentially, are you an influencer? Do you have a few 100,000 followers on YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram, or do you lack a personal brand? If you do have a large following, that's great, and I'd wholeheartedly recommend you build a Skool community and start monetizing it. But my guess is, if you're a beginner, as someone who works a 9 to 5, or goes to university, you probably just don't have an audience that size. But don't worry though, because growth operating doesn't need that. All you have to do is partner with a creator and build them a Skool community and take a cut, and you're set. But there's just one problem. Is the barrier to entry high enough? How hard is it really to build a community and maintain it? I don't have one, but from what I've seen, creators can figure it out, especially if they realize they're paying some beginner 50% of their profit for a few hours a week of work. So that model is just riskier because the barrier to entry just isn't high enough. You can be cut out at any point, but with an IMA, as we saw before, there isn't that risk. We don't rely on contracts that can't be enforced. We rely on the value provided and the skill of the agency that we run. And I teach all of this and much more in the IM Academy. Now, most of you are wondering, can I go from a complete beginner to running a $4 million agency like Suhit? The answer is yes, but it will take time because this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. I've been running my agency since I was 17, and now at 23, it's been nearly 6 years of hard work. But making your first 6 figures online in your first year is totally realistic. I did it at 17, turning over my first £100,000 within 6 months. That's $125,000. And everyone who's been in my IM Academy for long enough has hit that milestone. Like Sevi, he's been in the program since September. He's a great guy from the US. And me and him noticed an opportunity which I said he should go all in on to get the quickest results. So he decided to build a full service influencer management for the Asian American influencers on social media. Through the IM Academy, we've helped him build and establish a strong offer, and now Sevi has 8 talent management clients. And since starting with us, he's closed deals worth over $170,000, profiting himself $70,000. And if you want to ask him about the mentorship, he's even been posting his journey on Instagram. There is also Aditi and Sambhav, who started from scratch as teenagers, and they've now signed 4 retainer clients in the last month, adding $19,000 a month to the revenue. And they've even closed a whale client with a potential budget of up to $250,000. And IMAs can take anywhere from 30 to 50% of a brand's campaign budget, so they stand to make hundreds of thousands of dollars from just one client. We also have Mark from Australia, who now manages 4 of the biggest influencers in Australia, with a combined following of 10 million. In the last month alone, Mark's booked deals worth $50,000, and if he continues, he's on pace to hit multiple 6 figures. And many more have started where you are today, lost and confused about what to do, but knowing that they want to build a real business in an unsaturated niche. They put in the work, and I showed them how to build an influencer marketing agency. They come from different backgrounds, some in university, there's ones that leave a 9 to 5. So join the IM Academy, the only mentorship program teaching you everything you need to start and scale a successful influencer marketing agency. The process involves going through the IM Academy course, constantly updated with new videos, take you from knowing nothing about the business to being able to speak to industry leaders. You can also hop on calls with me, where I'll walk you through any major roadblocks using my mistakes to give you a shortcut, and I'll add you to a group chat where you'll have my number and the contacts of everyone else in the IM Academy for advice. And why am I comfortable offering this? Well, because my agency does near enough $4 million per year, and in 2 to 3 years, that number will be over $10 million. And in a decade, I aim to run a multi 8-figure company. But I want to give back, and since this is a growing market, there's plenty of money to go around. And if you want to do the same, shoot me a message on Telegram or Instagram. But I only take 3 new people every month, and spots are limited because I have a real business to run. But I'll give you the literal roadmap to go from where I was at 17 with no skills and capital to where I am now. I'm talking about things like how to outreach to brands, connecting with influencers that have a following into the millions, and exactly how to build a campaign that gets solid results. Everything you need to build a successful IMA. But full transparency, you'll need to invest some money because the value inside is just too good to give away. And every single person who has joined has made at least their money back or more. And in the future, I plan to raise the price because right now it's just at a steal. So drop me a message on either Telegram or Instagram and we can get started. But if you don't have any money to invest in the program right now, that's fine. Join my free newsletter and links to both will be in the description. And if you have any questions, please just drop them in the comments and I'm going to try to answer them all.